In the quiet village of Umuchema, a man named Ekene lived a strange and lonely life. From the age of 10, he had avoided water entirely, believing a prophecy told to him by a mysterious old woman, that if water touched him, he would melt away like wax in a flame. He never bathed, avoided the rainwater and river water. His peculiar life became the subject of gossip, but one stormy day, everything changed. As a child, Ekene was adventurous, often diving into the river with friends or dancing in the rain. Ekene sat under the mango tree, scratching at his dusty skin. He was 10 years old, and it was the hottest day of the year. Children from the village were splashing in the nearby river, laughing and playing. But Ekene stayed far away, hugging his knees to his chest. "Ekene, come and swim." His best friend, Nnamdi, shouted. Ekene shook his head. "No, I can't." "Why?" Nnamdi asked, working closer, dripping wet. "You're afraid of water." Ekene hesitated. He couldn't tell Nnamdi the truth. How could he explain what the old woman told him? A month earlier, he had wandered into the forbidden forest to pick mushrooms for his mother. Deep in the woods, he met an old woman with white hair and piercing eyes. She was sitting on a fallen tree, muttering to herself. When she saw him, she called out, "You, boy." Her voice cracked like dry wood. Ekene froze. "Come closer," she ordered. He obeyed, though his heart pounded in his chest. She reached out and touched his arm, her grip surprisingly strong. "Do you know who you are?" she asked. "I'm Ekene," he stammered. "No," she said, her eyes narrowing. "You are special, but you must be careful. Water is your enemy. If it touches you, you will melt like candle wax." Ekene stared at her, confused. "Melt. Never let rainwater or river water touch you," she said firmly. "Not even a drop." Before he could ask more, she disappeared into the forest, leaving him alone with her strange warning. From that day, Ekene avoided water like the plague. He stopped bathing and refused to swim with his friends. His parents scolded him, but he didn't care. The fear of melting consumed him. Years passed, and Ekene's fear only grew stronger. By the time he was 20, his avoidance of water made him a village outcast. Although he drank water to survive, he was meticulous in ensuring that no external water touched his body. Instead of bathing, he relied heavily on perfumes and powders to mask any unpleasant odors, a habit that earned him both ridicule and awe. "Ekene, when will you wash yourself?" his mother, Mama Ngozi, asked one morning. She stood at the door of their small hut, holding a bucket of water. "I don't need to wash," he replied, stepping back. "I'm fine like this." Mama Ngozi shook her head. "The whole village is talking about you. They say you smell like a goat." "Let them talk," Ekene said. "I don't care." "Ehen, you'll care when no woman agrees to marry you," she snapped. Ekene sighed. Marriage was the least of his concerns. He lived in constant fear of rain, rivers, and even spilled drinks. He built his entire life around avoiding water. He worked as a farmer but refused to go out on cloudy days. When the rains came, he locked himself indoors, trembling like a child. His neighbors called him Ekene the dirty boy. One fateful evening, dark clouds rolled over Umuchema. Thunder rumbled in the distance, and the air smelled of rain. Ekene hurried home from the farm, clutching his hoe. "Ekene, wait," a voice called. It was Amaka, the village seamstress. She ran toward him, carrying a bundle of clothes. "I made the shirt you ordered." "Not now, Amaka," he said, glancing at the sky. "But, I'll come tomorrow," he shouted, running off. Rain began to fall. Ekene's heart raced as he sprinted through the muddy path. The first drops hit the ground, and he imagined them chasing him, trying to reach his skin. Just as he reached his hut, a streak of lightning lit up the sky, and the rain came down in torrents. He slammed the door shut and pressed his back against it, breathing heavily. "Safe," he whispered, but then, he heard a faint knock. "Ekene," it was Amaka. "What are you doing here?" he asked through the door. "I got caught in the rain," she said. "Let me in." "I can't." "Why not? Are you afraid of the rain too?" she teased. Ekene hesitated. He didn't want to explain his fear. But as the knocking grew louder, he knew he couldn't leave her outside. With a deep breath, he opened the door. Amaka stepped in, dripping wet. Water pooled on the floor around her feet. Ekene jumped back, his eyes wide with panic. "What's wrong with you?" she asked. "Don't come closer," he said, his voice shaking. Amaka frowned. "Why? What's your problem?" Ekene stared at the water on the floor, his chest tightening. This was his worst nightmare. Amaka stared at Ekene, puzzled. Ekene shouted, backing into a corner. His voice was louder than he intended, and it startled Amaka. All right, she said, raising her hands in surrender. She dropped the bundle of clothes on the floor. "I just wanted to deliver your shirt. I didn't know water scares you so much." Ekene clenched his fists. He wanted to explain but feared how ridiculous it would sound. Who would believe that water could make a man melt? "I'm sorry," he muttered, avoiding her gaze. Amaka sighed and sat down on the dry part of the floor. "You know, the whole village talks about you. They think you're strange, but I've always said there's more to your story. What's the real reason you avoid water?" Ekene glanced at her, his chest tightening. Could he trust her with the truth? "You wouldn't understand," he said finally. "Try me," Amaka replied, her eyes softening. "You've lived like this for so long. Don't you want someone to listen?" Ekene hesitated, then took a deep breath. "When I was a boy, an old woman told me that if water touches me, I will melt. She said I'm not like other people. So I've avoided water ever since." Amaka blinked, her mouth opening slightly in shock. "Melt? Like a candle?" "Yes." She stared at him, trying to suppress a laugh. "Ekene, do you believe that?" "Yes, I do," he said defensively. "Why else would I take such precautions? Do you think I enjoy living like this?" Amaka saw the fear in his eyes and realized he was serious. She didn't want to offend him, but she couldn't believe such a thing was possible. "Has it ever happened before?" she asked gently. "What? Have you ever melted when water touched you?" "No, because I've never let it happen," Ekene said firmly. "I'm not going to take that risk." Amaka shook her head, puzzled. "But what if it's not true? What if she lied to you?" "She didn't lie," Ekene snapped. "I saw her eyes. She knew something about me, something I don't understand." Amaka leaned back, folding her arms. "All right, but don't you think it's worth finding out the truth? You can't live like this forever." "I don't need to find out," Ekene said. "I know the truth. Water is my enemy." Over the next few days, Amaka couldn't stop thinking about Ekene's strange belief. She decided she had to help him, even if he didn't want her help. One evening, as dark clouds gathered again, she approached his hut with a plan. "Ekene," she called, knocking on the door. He opened it cautiously. "What do you want, Amaka?" "I need to talk to you," she said. "It's important." Ekene frowned but let her in. "I've been thinking about what you told me," she began. "And I think we need to test it." "Test what?" he asked, his voice rising. "Your fear of water," she said. "We need to see if it's true." Ekene's heart raced. "Are you mad? Do you want me to die?" "Listen to me," Amaka said firmly. "You've been living in fear for 20 years. What if that woman was wrong? What if you've been avoiding water for nothing? I'm not risking my life for your curiosity, he said, turning away. Amaka sighed. Ekene, you're not living. You're just surviving. Don't you want to be free from this fear? I'm fine the way I am, he muttered. No, you're not, she said. And I'm not going to give up on you. Before he could respond, thunder rumbled outside, and rain began to fall. Perfect, Amaka said, standing up. What are you doing? Ekene asked, his voice trembling. She grabbed his arm and pulled him toward the door. It's time to face your fear. No, he shouted, trying to pull away. But Amaka was determined. She yanked the door open, and the rain splashed onto the threshold. Step outside, Ekene, she said. I can't, he whispered, his body shaking. You can, she insisted. Trust me. Ekene stared at the rain, his mind racing with images of himself melting into a puddle. But Amaka's firm grip and steady gaze gave him a strange sense of courage. Just one step, she said. If you melt, I'll be here. But if you don't, you'll finally be free. His legs felt like lead, but he took a shaky step forward. The rain hit his skin, cool and refreshing. He froze, waiting for the pain, for the melting, for the end. But nothing happened. The rain trickled down his face and arms, washing away years of fear and dirt. Ekene blinked, stunned. I'm still here, he whispered. Amaka smiled, tears in her eyes. You're free, Ekene. For the first time in 20 years, Ekene felt the rain, not as an enemy, but as a friend. As the rain poured down, Ekene stood frozen in disbelief. The water cascaded over his skin, washing away the years of dirt, fear, and isolation. Amaka clapped her hands and laughed, pulling him out of his daze. Ekene, look at you, she exclaimed. You're not melting. You're perfectly fine. Ekene touched his arms, his chest, and his face. The cool rainwater felt refreshing rather than threatening. For the first time in decades, he allowed himself to smile. I don't know what to say, he stammered. Say thank you, Amaka teased. Thank you, he said earnestly, looking into her eyes. The news spread through Umuchema like wildfire. By the next morning, everyone knew that Ekene had stepped into the rain and survived. Some villagers were thrilled for him, while others were skeptical. Mama Ngozi was overjoyed. My son, you're finally free, she cried, hugging him tightly. But Ekene wasn't sure how to feel. While he was relieved, the years of ridicule and isolation had left their mark. Will they ever accept me? He asked Amaka as they sat under a tree. They will, she assured him. It'll take time, but they'll see that you're just like everyone else. Her words comforted him, and for the first time, Ekene began to imagine a future where he could live without fear. Despite his newfound freedom, Ekene couldn't shake the memory of the old woman who had planted the fear in him. He decided he needed answers. I want to go back to the forest, he told Amaka one morning. Why? She asked. To find the old woman, he said. I need to know why she lied to me. Amaka hesitated. Are you sure that's a good idea? Yes, he said firmly. I need closure. Together, they ventured into the forbidden forest. The dense trees and eerie silence brought back memories for Ekene, but he pressed on. After hours of searching, they found a clearing where the old woman had once sat. To their surprise, she was still there, sitting on the same fallen tree, as if she had been waiting for them. So, you've returned, she said, her voice as sharp as ever. You lied to me, Ekene shouted. The old woman chuckled. Did I, or did I save you? Save me? Yes, she said. You were a reckless boy, always diving into rivers and taking unnecessary risks. I told you what you needed to hear to keep you alive. Ekene's mouth fell open. You made it up. I told you what you would believe, she said. And it worked, didn't it? You've lived to this day. Ekene felt a mixture of anger and relief. While her words had cost him years of fear, he realized she had acted out of a twisted sense of care. Go live your life, the old woman said, waving them away. With the truth revealed, Ekene felt a weight lift from his shoulders. He returned to the village with a new outlook on life. He began to bathe regularly, much to the delight of his neighbors, and started to repair his relationship with the villagers. Though it wasn't easy, he slowly earned their trust and respect. Amaka became his closest companion, guiding him through his transformation. Before long, their bond deepened into something more. Ekene, she said one evening as they walked by the river. What do you want to do now? He looked at the flowing water and smiled. I want to live, really live. And I want to thank you for helping me. She blushed. You're welcome. Ekene's story became a lesson for the entire village about the power of fear and the importance of confronting it. His journey from isolation to self-discovery inspired others to face their own fears and live fully. By overcoming his fear of water, Ekene not only reclaimed his life but also found love, purpose, and a future he never thought possible. Thank you for watching. Please like this video, share to your loved ones and subscribe to my channel.